Hey, hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jesse, and in today's reading vlog, I'm going to be reading the books that scared booktubers the most. The most scary books that booktubers have ever read. This is something that I thought was an original idea, but then I did a little searcheroo and found that another YouTuber has done a video just like this. So we're going to give credit where credit is due. Shout out to It's Bells who did this video where they read booktubers' scariest books. This video actually had me subscribing to their channel. It's excellent. Highly recommend checking it out. So I will link it down below in the description. For this video, I picked out 3 booktubers who made videos where it's literally titled The Scariest Books I've Ever Read. If it's a list of books, I'm going to be picking out a book from the list and reading it, and also hope that I come out of this video still being able to sleep at night. So for this video, I literally went to YouTube and just typed in Scariest Books I've Ever Read. And I picked 3 booktubers at random, so these are all 3 new to me booktubers. The first booktuber that I picked is Jessie May. I did not just pick them because we share a name. The video that I'm pulling a book from is their Scariest Books I've Ever Read video. Now, I'm not going to be reading too much into the descriptions of what these books are about, so if that offends you, I apologize, but I kind of want to go into these books not knowing too much, because I feel like sometimes with horror books, which I imagine a lot of these books are going to be horror books, maybe they'll be thriller books, but I feel like with horror and thriller, truthfully, the descriptions can sometimes just like ruin the book or just give too much away, and if you're given too much, you kind of like lose the frightening aspect of the book. Personally, that's my experience so far, so I kind of want to go into these books not knowing anything. I'm also not watching the booktubers full videos for this video because I'm going to go back and see what they felt about the book after I've read it, because I feel like I don't want their feelings to interfere with my feelings. Anyway, the book that I chose from Jesse's list is The Butterfly Garden. When I think Butterfly Garden, I think magical, I think fairies, I think nature, I think wings, I think happiness. But I'm pretty sure that this book is like the complete opposite of happiness. It is dark, it is bleak, it is unfortunate, it's sad. The Butterfly Garden is about these girls who have been captured by this guy, and he is collecting these girls as butterflies in his garden, which that alone sounds pretty unsettling. Like, I'm already going into this book being like, yikes, that feels uncomfy. But I'm also at the same time going to go into this open-minded, and I am interested to see if I end up feeling scared while reading this book, or what it's going to do to me. What emotion am I going to feel? I'm very curious. It's time to get started on this journey. Let's get to reading. Reading update time. I have made it to page 118. There are not chapters in this book. There are just parts, like little sections. So I believe I'm in section 2. So far, this book is wild. It's much more so a devastating situation. Like, it is scary in the fact that like this is a situation that could happen in real life. And I think that that is what makes it so scary, is the sort of like realness factor. The fact that like something similar to this is probably happening in the world today, which is so devastating to think about, like so sad. I don't want to go in too deep on what's going on with this book in case some of you guys want to read this book, though I will say look up trigger warnings if you do plan on picking this book up, because there is just so many nasty things that go down in this book. It's very heavy in terms of like sexual assault, but we are basically following this girl who has escaped the Butterfly Garden, and we see kind of a back and forth with her talking to 2 detectives and then her at the Butterfly Garden. Now, the Butterfly Garden is this place where this guy has essentially like kidnapped all these girls, and he uses them and abuses them, and he really doesn't see anything wrong with what he's doing. I think he truly thinks that he is like benefiting the girls in some kind of way and protecting them and caring for them, but it's like, no sir, that is exactly not what you're doing. That's the complete opposite of what you're doing. You're the worst, you're disgusting. Can you stop? Can you not? I will say we do kind of have breaks from the heaviness, but for the most part this book is rather heavy. I would say it's mostly heavy when you're actually like in the stories that she is telling the detectives, because okay, so we go back and forth with her talking to the detectives, and those moments are not light necessarily, but definitely a break from seeing inside the Butterfly Garden and seeing what's going on. It's more so them questioning her and just trying to get information, and then she will go on to tell stories about the Butterfly Garden, the things that she saw there, the things that she faced there, and those are the moments when you get like completely consumed by the heaviness and you just are like walking through a book filled with literal darkness. I think the thing that is making this book so interesting is that we obviously know that a lot of the girls have been rescued. The ones that survived this situation have been rescued. And so I think what's keeping me in this book is wanting to know how that exactly goes down, like how they're rescued, how they are able to get out of the situation. Because when you're in the butterfly garden, you just feel hopeless for these girls because you just don't know how they're going to get out of it. So I'm finding it interesting kind of leading up to the point of their escape. In some ways, it's nice to know that like some of them make it out and that they're not chained down to the butterfly garden anymore. So like there is that kind of like hopeful feeling, but at the same time, having to like relive this entire situation that they've been through has been so hard to read. It's fascinating too hearing from our main character because when she's talking to the detectives, she sort of feels removed from everything that's happened to her. It's almost like she got used to living there and now she's just numb to it. And I don't think that she's fully kind of come out of the trauma and realized the fact that like she doesn't have to go back. I think she's kind of like still holding on to the fact that like she came from this awful place and she is now free, but I don't think that she feels that sense of freedom yet. And I think that that comes in part with her like still technically being under the control of the detectives and them like questioning her and getting all this information out of her. And she doesn't really give them information willingly at first. Like she kind of is making them work for it and being a little bit sassy. And I think she has every right to be, obviously, because it's her story to tell, but it's just like so interesting. Because then we switch to the moments where we are in the butterfly garden and we are seeing the things that have happened to her and we're fully immersed in that world. And those are the moments that are obviously really hard to read, but give you insight into why she is the way that she is when she is talking to the detectives. I am enjoying it for the most part, but it's one of those situations where it's like, I'm not enjoying it for the things that are happening, obviously, because it's like so sad, so devastating, but I am eager to find out how they got out, how they escaped, how they were saved, and what that looked like exactly. So I'm definitely interested to keep reading and see where things end up. It feels like things are definitely starting to ramp up to what that escape looks like, and I feel like that could definitely bring on the frights. I will keep reading and keep you guys updated. It's Comic Book Wednesday, the best day, even though there's quite a few comics that I have fallen behind on and I need to get caught up, but like it's just so fun going to the comic book store on release day and just seeing all the new comics that have come out. So we'll see if I end up with anything today. Reading update time. I finished The Butterfly Garden, and this is definitely one of those books where I know it's going to linger on my mind for the longest time. There are so many things that go down in this book that just kind of like scar your mind a little bit and are definitely things that I'm just going to think about far into the future. I am leaving this book also having a few questions and also recognizing the fact that like I had to suspend my disbelief a little bit with some things that go down towards the end. There was also one specific aspect at the end that honestly made me somewhat angry. Like I was so annoyed, and I'm not gonna spoil it obviously, but for those of you who have read it, Sophie at the end had me questioning everything. I'll leave it at that. No spoilers from me, babes. No spoilers. Now, in terms of scariness, did I find this book scary? I don't know if I found it like scary necessarily. I found it more so unsettling. I think the scariness of it is the fact that like this is something that could happen in real life. Like there probably is something happening similar to this in real life, which is so devastating to think about, but I just wouldn't be all that shocked because we live in a very disturbing world. I'm just saying. Now, I do want to go and watch Jessie May's video and then compare our thoughts. So I'm gonna go watch her video real fast and then I'll come back and share her thoughts and compare my own thoughts. Okay, I went and watched Jessie's video. One of the first things that she mentions is one of the first things that I mentioned. She said that it's a book that stuck with her ever since she read it. We're on the same page there because I genuinely feel this book's impact. And I know for sure it's one that that I'll think about often. She said the aspect that scared her was just the imagery of the women in captivity. I definitely agree. There are aspects of the garden that are just hard to fathom, and I fear that parts of it definitely like stained my mind in a not so great way. I think the resin preservation is what disturbed me the most. She goes on to say it's beautifully written and she loved the characters and their resilience, and I full-heartedly agree. Agree. I feel like we have very similar feelings. I definitely am glad that I picked Jesse's recommendation for this because overall, this was like a great book. It was very well written, very interesting characters that have a lot of personality. They might not be the most likable characters when they're first presented to you, but you get to know them and you see how layered they are, all the things that they've been through, and why they are the way that they are. And I also just really liked kind of the back and forth. Like, I really liked going from having conversations with the detective to actually being in the garden. I thought that format worked really well for this book. And I felt like it really helped cushion the scariness because I think had we only just been in the garden, I think that probably would have been scarier, honestly. I think that there would have been a major lack of hope in the air, and knowing that at least the main character had made it out of the garden gave that sort of like hopeful feeling. Overall, really enjoyed the Butterfly Garden. I think I would land on a... This is difficult, actually. I think I would give it a 3.5, more so leaning towards like the 4-star rating. I just had some questions at the end and some things that just kind of bothered me. Thank you to Jessie May for your video. Again, I will link their channel down below in the description. Go and check them out. And now it's time to pick out our next read. All right, the next booktuber that I picked out at random for this video is book lover Lara. I will leave a link down below in the description to her channel. The video I picked a book from is her video titled The Scariest Books I've Ever Read, and the book that I ended up picking from her video, though there were a few that I was curious about, I ended up going with this book right here called The Devil Takes You Home. This book apparently is a mixture of horror and noir, and so we have this guy who is basically trying to provide for his family, and he ends up in a dark situation, and that dark situation just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't know too much going into this book, but I am definitely intrigued by that. I'm also intrigued by the fact that it's like a mixture, a mashup of horror and noir. I want to see what that looks like. I think that that's what got me curious. I am definitely interested to see how I end up feeling about this book. Feels like it could be one that could be like scary and also emotional. So I'm interested to see what it ends up delivering. Without further ado, let's get to reading. Reading update time. I have made it to chapter 21, page 180 in The Devil Takes You Home. And so far, this book has been very dark, more so in like a devastatingly sad kind of way, and also in a horror-esque way. So basically we're just following Mario, our main character, who is getting caught in this last hitman job. And we see all the plays and moves that he made in order to find himself in this position. And I think that that's what makes it really sad. We see his journey with his daughter. His daughter had cancer and passed away from it, and that heavily affected him. And that was kind of like the start in him even getting involved in all of this, because he didn't have enough money to provide for his family, to provide for his daughter's healthcare, and so he decided to, you know, dabble down this dark lane in order to provide and protect his family. But he wasn't able to like fully provide for his daughter and get her the care that she needed. And I don't think that he's to blame for his daughter passing away. I think there could have been a possibility of her passing away regardless of had he had enough money to help provide for her. But I think regardless, he can't help but take on that stress and take on that mindset that like he is the reason that his daughter passed away and that his family fell apart. Because after his daughter passes away, the wife decides to leave him, and he's still like madly in love with his wife. Like, he doesn't want to have their relationship be over. He wants to continue pursuing her, and we see that continue to be in the back of his mind as we travel deeper into the novel. And so there's just like so many devastating situations surrounding our main character, and it just like makes it really sad. It feels very like depressing and bleak. That's the best way that I can put it. I feel like there are horror elements that are coming into play, and I wish it would kind of like lean more into that. I'm not as interested in the noir side of things, to be honest, but I love the horror elements that are coming into play. Those things are done so well and are so eerie and creepy, and I just wish that that was more present, because it's not like the key player of the book. It's definitely there, and we definitely have these like frightening things that are happening, but I just want like a little bit more. I wish we would just like fully dive over into that lane, but I get that like it's trying to keep this like happy balance. I really wasn't expecting it to be as heavy as it is, but we see how these two blows have really affected his life and how he is navigating life with these two big things that have happened to him, and it's just a lot. It's a lot to swallow, to be honest. And I think this last job is him trying to take control of his life. I think he wants the outcome to be a way for him to put himself in a better position, but I feel like he also is going into it thinking that his life is worthless, thinking that he doesn't really have a chance to turn things around. And so I think that that's kind of why he's okay with doing it, is because the outcome, regardless of what happens, regardless if he comes out of it alive or dead, I don't think he really feels like the stakes are that high, because whether he's alive or not, like he feels like his life is a disaster, and so it doesn't matter like the outcome. Overall, it's very violent, which I would say is like my least favorite part of it. Like I just wish it would lean completely over into the horror lane. I know that I keep saying that, but I think that's because like the horror bits that are popping up are done so well, are written so well. Like they have me like transfixed when they pop up. I'm like, oh my god, this is terrifying. But it doesn't like fully kind of delve into that. It's more so just like a side lane to everything else that's going on. Right now, I'm not really feeling like scared necessarily while reading it. I'm more so I'm feeling like the intensity of it. The tension is written really well, and I think that the thing that kind of makes this book feel uncomfortable is that you just don't know what could come next. Anything could go south at any point, and that's sort of like the scariness of it, I guess. I'm excited to keep reading this and to see how I end up feeling about it. Tonight is Friday Night Fright Night. I'm doing this thing in September and October where every Friday night I get myself some fast food, which is going to be fried rice tonight, which I think I should just retitle it Friday Night Fried Rice Bite. Boom. New Friday Night Fright title just dropped, guys. I'm gonna get myself some fried rice and have a double feature night for some horror films. So tonight I'm gonna be watching the new Salem's Lot. I've never read the book, so catch me out here being a bad reader by watching the adaptation before I read the book. And then I'm also gonna be watching Child's Play 2, which I love the Child's Play franchise. That was like the first ever horror movie that I ever watched. I remember I was like a little kid and I had stayed up past my bedtime and was scrolling through the channels, and I came across Child's Play. It was like on Spike, I want to say. It was either Spike or Sci-Fi, one of those channels, if anybody remembers those channels. And I was like so confused by the movie. I was like, what is this? Why is there this terrifying doll? You don't know, Child's Play is the movie that brought us the icon that is Chucky, this terrifying possessed doll. It's been a second since I've watched Child's Play 2, but I think it's like one of my favorites in the franchise. But since I'm watching that tonight, I thought it would be the perfect time to do this little knockoff Chucky Lego set that I got for my birthday. It's definitely not official merch, but I got it for my birthday, so shh. But I'm definitely gonna put this together today in celebration of watching Child's Play 2 this evening. Also, I forgot to show you guys the comics that I got on Comic Book Wednesday, so let me share with you. I got a little haul. I picked up some very random things. First up, I got here Goobers, and I was so shocked because this one actually has a description on the back. I love that. I wish more comics did this. So this is about this guy who takes his grad school friends to his hometown in order to like mix his friend group, mix his high school friend group with his grad school friend group. And when he gets to the small town where nothing ever happens, he finds that something is happening, something grotesque even. That being an infestation of body-snatching alien bugs, which I imagine is what this is all about. Then I got this Archie Halloween Spectacular. I've always wanted to like read the Archie comics, but they kind of like intimidate me. Like there's so many, I wouldn't even know where to begin. Like it's too much. I have too many series going on. I don't need to try and get into a series like this because it's ridiculous. But I think that this will be okay to read without having the context of the full series, because it's just like a fun little Halloween series. So I'm excited about this. And finally, I got Monster High New Scaremaster. I solely picked this one up because of the artwork and the character design. Like I love the character design of this. I think it's so fun. Reading update time. I have finished The Devil Takes You Home. It's interesting because this book reminded me quite a bit of like a fantasy quest book where you're following these characters on a quest, on a journey, and they have these little stops, these little side quests that they have to do along the way on the journey. And I loved that format. I love that formatting in a fantasy novel, so it was nice to have it in a thrillery, horror-y novel. It's not necessarily a book where I felt strongly about any of the characters. I did feel for the main character, like I felt for the things that he was going through. It was devastating seeing all these different elements come in and just like really challenge him and just have him struggle quite a bit. Truthfully, that's one of my favorite things in this book, is just seeing our main character kind of go through it. I mean, obviously it's like sad seeing our main character go through all these things, but just seeing him kind of cycle through all these different elements at play and seeing how he handled himself from grief to feeling like his life is falling apart, losing his lover, now being caught up in this really dark situation, just like seeing him handle himself throughout those different cycles was really interesting, and seeing that growth by the end of the book was really great. I really loved that. I think I would have loved this book more had it fully opened the can of worms in terms of the horror elements that it brought into play, because those little bits that we got were so good. They were some of my favorites. Those things were definitely haunting and chilling and just had you feel in some kind of way, but it doesn't really like delve deep into that. That's just kind of like a side thing that happens, I would say. Personally, it more so stayed in the kind of like final job kind of things. I think overall I didn't really vibe that well with the pacing. I felt like it dragged quite a bit, and I needed a few more things to come through and just like make it a little bit more interesting in terms of the plot as well. I just felt like it needed a little bit more shaping. Overall though, I did enjoy this book. I'm landing on a 3 out of 5 stars, and I would recommend this if it's a book that sounds interesting to you, but I feel like it does appeal to like a very specific audience. So do your research before picking this book up if it sounds interesting to you. I'm now going to watch Laura's full video and compare her thoughts with mine. Alright, we're back. She didn't have too much to say, but she said, it's really scary. I don't know if I was necessarily scared. I was more so intrigued by the kind of horror elements that came into play. And I think maybe had we like, again, delved deeper into that, I would have ended up scared, but I felt like it was just kind of like a sideline thing. She also said that the body horror scared her and that it chilled her to the bone. Again, I didn't necessarily have like a scared experience reading this book. I more so felt like the intensity of our main character getting caught up in this rather dark job situation. But overall, I did really enjoy this, and I'm glad that Laura recommended it in her video because it pushed me to pick this one up. I ended up watching Salem's Lot and Child's Play 2 the other night. Salem's Lot was not my favorite. I was a little disappointed by like the pacing of the story, and then it also just felt like you had to have read the book to fully get the picture and to fully understand the story, which, you know, obviously my bad for not reading the book before watching the movie. I was just a little disappointed because it felt like there were scenes that were missing, and I know that Salem's Lot is a rather large book, so I'm sure it was like difficult translating it to film, even though it's been done before, but I just felt like it brushed over things, didn't really delve into things, and then also the ending wrapped up so fast. I was like, ain't no way this is over. But it was over, unfortunately. Then I watched Child's Play 2, which is a banger. I love that movie so much. It's probably one of the best in the franchise, in my opinion. I put together my Chucky. Here he is in all his glory. He doesn't really stand up on his own all that well, but that's okay. It was fun to put together. I enjoyed it. I love like a Lego situation like this. Even though this is like knockoff Lego, I still had a good time with it. It's still really fun for me. Just like relaxing. Like you just kind of like block out the outside world and you just build. It's so fun. Let's go talk about the last booktuber that I picked out for this video, and the last book I'm going to be reading for this vlog as well. The last booktuber that I chose for this video, I'm actually kind of cheating because I know who he is. I was trying to do like new to me booktubers, and technically he is a new to me booktuber because I didn't know that he had a booktube channel. I am familiar with him from TikTok, but that is Books Are Sick. I will leave a link down below in the description to his channel. He's great. I love his vibe. I love his like relaxed way of talking about books. So if you like that, definitely go and check him out. Not that he needs a shout out from me, so many people know how great he is, but the video that I pulled a book from is 5 scary books you should read if you like being scared. I do in fact enjoy being scared. Do I enjoy being scared? I don't know if I do actually, but I do love horror books. I do love scary books, so I'm excited to read the book that I picked from his video, specifically because this book is super popular. It's kind of blown up on Book Talk, I would say. And that book is Tinder is the Flesh. This book, again, I'm going into it literally knowing nothing other than the fact that like it's a translated work and it's got a cannibalism element. That's all I know going into this book. So I don't know a lot. I feel like I'm mostly going into this book just curious. Like I'm just so interested to see how that element, cannibalism, is written in this book, how it's woven in, how it makes sense for this world, and what the author does with it. Like I just have so many curious thoughts going into this book. Like I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued. So let's not waste any time. Let's dive into this book. Without further ado, let's get to reading. Reading update time. I ended up completely hooked on this book and I could not put it down, so I finished it in 2 sittings. It was a very easy read. It has like very simple writing but beautiful writing, and I also just like got so hooked on the story and the things that were happening. Was it grotesque? Absolutely. But I think that kind of lured me in a little bit because I was just so curious and I was fascinated. At first I thought that this book was going to fall into the category of like just being gross to be gross, but the more that I read, the more that I realized what it was doing, and that is kind of reflecting our society a little bit in terms of like capitalism. I'm sure that there's a lot more to this book. Like I feel like I could reread this and honestly get even more out of it than I did with this first read. But like the main thing that stuck out to me was capitalism. How we kind of live in a world where capitalism is put first often. The messaging is just done in a very like grotesque way, and you kind of have to wade through a lot of like sick, nasty things in order to pick up what it's dropping. But I did eventually pick up what it dropped, and it was definitely a fascinating depiction of that for sure. It leans into dystopian, which I really liked about it, in terms of both like the sort of cannibalism aspect, the acceptance of cannibalism, but also the virus aspect I felt like really lended to the dystopian aura. It's one of those reading experiences for me where my opinions on characters altered over time significantly, and I thought that was like a fascinating experience. Now honestly, I don't think that I would recommend this book. I'm not even gonna give it like a very high rating, to be honest, because I feel like it just didn't really match up with my personal preferences with the book. I did enjoy my time with it, but I think I just got so hooked on curiosity. I think that was like the biggest pull for me, is like I was just so curious. I could not stop reading. Like clearly I read it in 2 sittings. The reason that I wouldn't recommend this book is because one, it is very grotesque. It is very unnerving, uncomfy, and it's a lot to take in. I just don't see it being a book that a lot of people connect with. And I think it also is a book where you really have to work to kind of see what's being done. I enjoyed that work, but I could see that being something that's not the vibe for a lot of people. I don't know. I think a lot of people will misinterpret it for just being gross, which you're valid if you feel that way. If you left this book being like, that was just gross, like you're valid in feeling that way. It is gross. To be fair, it is. It's disgusting at times, but I think that there is some underlying messages that are very important, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it and kind of digging out those questions and thinking about them. I also will say that I think that there were a lot of like unnecessary gross scenes in here. The one in particular that like stands out to me in a very not so great way is the puppies scene, the scene with the puppies. I just could have done without that. That did not need to be in there. It just made me upset when I was reading the book. So there are some scenes like that are woven throughout the book that I just felt did not necessarily add anything to the overall story, other than grossness, grotesqueness, and brutalness. All the nesses. Did it scare me? Yes. I will say that I think it achieved scaring me. I had a rather interesting dream the night that I finished this book, and I think it was because of the influence of this book, because this book kind of like scarred my mind a little bit with some of the gross imagery throughout the book. I think because I was so into it and because I read it so quickly and just was like consumed by it, that it was easy for me to just like fall into it and just feel the fear, feel the terrifying aspect of this book. So yes, it did in fact scare me. I will say that. It did achieve that. I am landing on a 3 out of 5 stars, which I think is like a solid rating personally. Like I don't think that that's a bad rating. Some people might see that as a bad rating. I think overall for me, this one just did not necessarily match up to my reader preferences. I'm glad that I read it because I've always been intrigued by it. This was like a viral TikTok book, I believe. And so of course it had me wondering why so many people were reading and loving this book. And I definitely understand the appeal, but I also also understand the other side of it, where I get why people might leave this book being like, that was not okay. I'm now gonna go listen to Books Are Six thoughts and hear what he has to say and see how we compare. Okay, I'm back. I watched this video. He honestly didn't have much to say about it. He said it's gross. I agree. He said the writing was beautiful. I also agree with that. It was a very simple writing style, very easy to consume, but it had moments of beauty throughout it. So I really appreciated that. And then he also said that it's a wild ride, which I again also agree with that. But I want to hear from you guys down below in the comments if any of you guys have read this book. What are your thoughts on it? Because I definitely feel like this is a book that like stirs up a lot of feelings for a lot of people. So I'm just curious how you guys felt about it. Let me know down below in the comments. Before I get to the rankings of the books, the book rankings, I have a little package to unbox. Penguin Random House sent me this box like a month ago and I'm just now getting around to unboxing it. I'll let you guys see first. What is it? Ooh. It's Aaron A. Craig's new book called The 13th Child. Oh my gosh, it's a thick book. Oh my goodness gracious. Here's the book in all its beauty. This book is so thick. I'm shocked. A haunting, deeply romantic tale of life and death. Y'all know how I feel about death books. Sign me up. I'm here for it. And then it also came with tea. So we've got some tea in here. I'm pretty sure these are like honey lollipops that you like put in the tea. That's so fun. And then I think this is a candle. It's a candle. And it's fantastic. Wow. Wow. Oh my gosh, and it came with edible glitter. You're joking. That's so cool. What a nice little treat. I was not expecting this. Now it is time to rank the books. I had to like think it through a little bit. But in first place, we've got The Butterfly Garden. This is definitely a book that has like stained my mind and one that I will think about often. Then I would say Tender as the Flesh comes in second place. I think that this book is very original, very grotesque, and I liked a lot of the messages. And then I would say The Devil Takes You Home. This book was honestly just very sad. It just made me feel a lot of feelings, and I often just felt so bad for the main character. Those are my rankings. That's how I felt. I want to hear from you guys down below in the comments now. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts are on them. If you have not read any of these books, then let me know down below in the comments the scariest book that you've ever read. I'm planning on doing a video where I read your scary books, the books that scared you the most, so drop a recommendation for me down below in the comments. If you like this video, be sure to go and hit that like button. If you want to see more bookish content from me, be sure to go and hit subscribe or go and hit that bell icon and you'll be notified every time I post new videos. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope your day is bright, that tomorrow is brighter. Keep reading what your heart desires, and I will see you soon with the new video. Bye, yo!